Pleasure to welcome to the podcast. It's the reigning goalie of the year, Syracuse goalie Delaney Sweitzer. Delaney, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Well, I'm pumped. I'm pumped that we made this happen. It's been a long time in the works, and here we are. We're going to chat lacrosse goalie for the next, 40 minutes or an hour or so. But I'd like to hear the story of your very first save, the very first time you jumped into goal. Do you remember that?
Yeah, it's actually super funny because I have a twin sister and she always loves to mention how she was a goalie before me. But that was honestly because when I started playing lacrosse, we started playing for our local boys club team, the North Penn Dragons, because we always followed in the footsteps of our older brother and wanted to do everything he was doing. So in fourth grade, he started playing lacrosse and we wanted to do that, but we didn't have a girls program. And our team didn't have a goalie. Everyone was so young. No one knew their position at that point. So we all had to take a turn in the cage every weekend. A new goalie was in. And then when it was finally my turn, I ended up just loving this position. And since then I've been in the cage. And I mean, I like to think it's funny that Savannah, who's now an attacker here at Syracuse, was a goalie before me. But yeah,
But
that's kind
just
of
for
the
circumstance,
short version.
just because she tried it first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
All
just for
right.
that
All right.
reason.
What do you think it was about the goalie position that that you like so much, or what do you like about it now? Going back to when you were a kid and even now, maybe it's the same.
I think now and then I love to challenge myself, and I think it was the hardest position on the field at the time, and that's really what I loved about it. And yeah, like I still would say it's the hardest position out there. You gotta be a different breed to be a goalie is what they all say, but you really do. And I think I was fearless and I was super competitive growing up, still am. And yeah, I loved that
Yeah.
aspect of it.
What so you played with the boys like when you were starting out. There was no girls program, so you play with the boys. Which adds a whole nother element, right? To
Yeah.
it. That could be a little bit of challenging. We usually talk about all these challenges of being the lacrosse goalie, but now you're the girl. You're the girl out there, maybe one of two girls
Yeah.
out there. Talk to me about that. And if there's a young girl who's in that same situation, because that could be the case, right? What tips do you have for her?
Um, it's funny because I actually ended up playing on the boys' side until my sophomore year of high school. And in high school, my sisters stopped playing boys lacrosse, but we played we played club for LB3. So the Banks, JP Banks was our head coach. He welcomed us onto the field. Like our North Penn Dragons coach, coach that we were girls and we were kind of tough and we loved like getting beat up and being aggressive just because of our competitive brothers. And I think it was fun because you would take your helmet off after the game and people would just be like, "Oh my god, like that's a girl." Like,
Right.
and I think it's so funny now, like looking back and just people doubting you just because you're a female. Like, I was just proving that I could be there. I can do it too. Like, yeah, I don't know. I guess to any girl out there, you can do whatever you put your mind to and don't let anyone else tell you otherwise, no matter what people say. I know me and Savannah were chirped along the way, but
Yeah.
we became better for it. And I don't think I would be the person or the goalie I am today if I didn't have that experience competing with other like boys.
Sure. Sure. Um, yeah, I remember when I coached Cal, a youth team right after I graduated Cal. We had a girl out there, and it also helps when like the coach really supports you as well and kind of makes sure. And like these were like sixth graders or seventh graders, right? And I made sure that like she got just as much respect as anybody, and she was one of the better players because she was like really tall and fast. And so yeah, if you can put your mind to it, like you can absolutely go out there and be a great player, right?
Yeah, and I totally had that support. It's funny, like every boy on my team, as young as they were, like respected me, and they protected me in Savannah in a way and showed their support for like what we were doing. And even when we were getting chirped by other people, they would turn to them and kind of joke and be like, "You just got stuffed by a girl," or something like
Reverse
say
chirped them.
something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, I
Yeah.
like it.
Which
Yeah.
it's awesome. And obviously I had great supportive coaches during that time too.
Yeah. And, as lacrosse goalies, like there is something to be said. Like you do have to develop kind of a little bit of a thicker skin because the other team is going to try and get under your head. The opposing fans are going to try to get into your head. If you let every little thing bother you, like, oh, you're a girl out here, and like you start to let that get to you, like at the end of the day, like they're just words, right? And they can only hurt
Yeah.
you, right, if you let them. So, that's kind of the mental toughness piece, I think.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um, Awesome. So, and then I imagine once then you start to see shots like from girls with the girls stick with like the less physically strong girls, you're like, wow, these are not as fast.
Yeah, it was definitely a transition from
Yeah,
boys to girls, but I think I was better for it, and
sure.
I think it just helped me even be ready for like a more like the college level game, like outside shots, like were more. I mean, in high school it's a little bit different. Sorry, I'm losing my train of thought. But basically, when I transitioned to girls, I just kind of realized that it's like a whole different game in a
Right.
way,
Right.
because it's a lot of like inside shots. There's a lot of different like aspects to the game, like 8 meters, things like that. So it definitely was different, but I mean, I loved it. I still embraced it, and I felt like I was like more prepared to get in the cage when I did finally make the jump from boys to girls.
Yeah, well, that makes total sense. It's like anytime you're seeing like more difficult shots, even if it's like, doesn't matter if it's boy or girls, right? Just every time you're seeing more difficult shots, when you then go back to like lesser shots, they seem easier. So that makes
Yeah,
total sense to me. So you grew up in where did you grow up? Like Philadelphia area?
yeah, just
Yeah.
outside.
And then how do you go about then, once you're like, all right, I like this goalie position, seems pretty cool. Like maybe I'm good at it. How do you like go about learning how to make the saves, or like some camps, or did you work with some coaches?
Yeah, I think I've had like along my journey, I've had a lot of um people that love goalie or they were coaches give me a lot of tips, but I think just naturally, like I still say I'm like determined to, and I was like fearless at that in those young years. And I think just attacking the ball, watching videos, watching college lacrosse, watching people I idolize in the cage play, just trying to emulate and pick up different tips from different people was like huge in learning how to make saves, but also just getting shots from my siblings. I have 3 amazing siblings who probably I would not be here without them, but we are super competitive, and losing was not an option in my family. And we were just constantly playing, and my brothers, they were so happy that someone could hop in the cage and they could rip some shots on me, and I would just do it. And I think just taking a lot of reps was like a huge thing for me and making saves. And I don't think I focused as much on like techniques or like strategies until I got a little older, I would say.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, most older siblings want, like, they actually force their younger siblings to get in there and play goalie because they need somebody to shoot on, right? But it sounds like it sounds like that maybe that was not the case. You're like, I love this. I love this position. This is for me.
No, I definitely have loved it since the day I was thrown in, I would say.
Yeah. You mentioned being fearless. Where does that come from? Because that is not a natural thing. I mean, the majority of lacrosse goalies, like when you throw them in there, like it's kind of scary, right? Like I remember when I first started playing, like there was definitely a lot of like flinching at the shots until I got used to it. But it was not, for me anyways, not a natural thing. What do you think that lack of fear comes from?
I think that's definitely a term I would use for my younger years. I think just like working with a like mental performance coach, fearlessness or fearless is not the right word for it, but I think I just was naturally super competitive in everything I did and I was determined to, be the best at whatever I was doing. So I would work the hardest and do whatever it takes to perform on the field or even like other things in my life. I just feel like I wouldn't stop unless I got to the point I wanted to be at.
Hmm.
I don't know.
It's the drive. It's the
Yeah,
competition for you. Yeah, I get it. I get it. That
yeah,
makes sense. Um, but what a great quality to have as a lacrosse goalie is that fearlessness, right? Just it
yeah,
takes a while to develop, but once you can get it, then you can just focus on attacking the ball and not all these other things,
yeah,
not these other bad
totally,
habits that a lot of goalies have.
totally.
You mentioned, earlier in an earlier answer, sort of watching other goalies and just kind of studying the game. I'm curious who was it for you at the collegiate level or even the pro level when you were young that you enjoyed watching, and if you remember specific things that you learned, I'd love to hear that too.
Yeah, I think there's definitely two people that really like made me love the position even more, and those were Devin Wills and Liz Hogan. And it's funny now that I'm at Syracuse, I actually picked the number 2 because I wanted to be her. She was my idol, and
Hmm.
now I'm wearing her number, which is so cool to say, but I just growing up, like, I loved how you could tell they were leaders on the field, and you could tell their passion for the sport, but they were kind of instrumental players in terms of paving the way for, like, female goalies. Like, they did things very unconventional at the time, and they were super active outside the cage, super athletic. They would play super far out, make crazy plays just from like a clear. So I think that's something I really try to emulate, and I love their style of play. I would say those are definitely two people that I still look up to, and
Yeah,
yeah,
same. Me too. Especially Liz. Liz is awesome.
yeah,
She's such a good educator too. So she's like presented like a
totally,
couple times and like just given these amazing in-depth presentations about the lacrosse goalie position. I was just like, wow, this is awesome. So, and yeah, she was, yeah, she played. I mean, she kind of played like a guy, to be honest, like a guy goal,
yeah,
like a right, like she's active, she's
yeah,
out of the cage, and you see a lot more. I think female goalies play like that nowadays than you did back when she was at Cuse. But yeah, she's great.
totally,
Yeah. Um, very cool. So then in high school, is that kind of the first time that you start to talking about the recruiting process, right? Is that kind of the first time that you start to think, hey, I'm pretty good at this. Maybe I could play Division 1. And for those that don't know, like you didn't start at Syracuse, you started at USC. So I'd love to hear
yeah,
how they eventually got on your radar.
yeah. I mean, I think by the time in 8th grade, I realized that I love this sport and I don't see an end anytime soon and I wanna be a college lacrosse player. I also was a basketball player and a field hockey player at the time, and I loved basketball so much. I always grew up thinking I was gonna play college basketball, even though I'm not very good now. It was way more realistic pathway for me to go lacrosse. But yeah, there was no recruiting rules when I was in high school, so it's so different now with all of the rules and whatever. So I definitely started getting recruited super early.
Mm,
But my parents helped me try to help me and me and my sister always knew we wanted to go to college together. We're literally like the same person, but so different, like what my dad always says. But so we knew that was like the only option for us, and she was on the same page, I was on the same page. And we took a while with our recruiting process because we really wanted to make the right decision for us, and I didn't end up we didn't end up committing until I want to say our sophomore year of high school. And at the time, that was USC was the right decision, and um, looking back on it now, I'm so grateful that I did have those first 2 years at USC. Again, without that experience, I wouldn't be the player I am today. But I think just with COVID and a lot of other factors, I wanted to be closer to home, and I wanted to compete at a national championship. And um yeah, I took a chance on myself, and we both decided to transfer going into our junior year. So now I'm here.
All right. I got some questions for you. About the
Go
recruiting
for it.
process, because it's one of those things that a lot of parents, I think in particular, are like lost on, right? Um,
Totally.
how did you what am I trying to say? How did you know that you were like a great goalie? Like, in terms of a parent saying, like, where should my expectations be? Like, I don't know. Like, I never played lacrosse. Do I have a D1 athlete here? Do I have a D2 athlete here? Are they like not going to play college sports? How do you help the parents set the expectations? What do you think about that?
I would say that's a really difficult question. Obviously, I think the biggest thing is how much does your kid want it, not
Mm-hmm.
how much do you want it.
Mm-hmm.
And they kind of have to lead the way in that sense, and you have to support them for whatever level they want to go. And obviously with the rule changes, I think it's junior year you start to get more realistic about what level you can play at or what level you want to play at. Um, yeah, that's a hard question. But I think just like your work ethic really is like shows how good you're going to be and how committed you are. And if it's really something you want, you're going to find the ways to do it, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
If
It
that
is.
makes
It is.
sense.
It is
I
a
know
tricky
that's like
question, right? It's a tricky
I
question,
know I
but
don't.
I think there's so many different little. There's not one right answer. There's just so many different little
Yeah.
tidbits here and there that you can drop. So thank you for sharing that. So when Devin Wills was the coach at USC that recruited you,
Yes.
there you go. Now it all
Yeah,
comes full circle, huh?
I know. It really does come full circle. Yeah, she actually was not there when she had left before I had been a freshman, but she was a part of the recruiting process
I
for
see. I
me. Yeah.
gotcha. And
Yeah.
when you get to college, then does your goalie game change at all?
100%. I think my like just like mentality wise, like you're surrounded by the best of the best in your position, and that can be kind of difficult. But I think throughout my 4 years of college, gotten so many I've changed drastically as a player just from playing at a higher level. Like the game's so much faster. There's so much to learn from the shooters, like your coaches, like your other goalies you're with. So yeah, I guess I want to like pinpoint a moment that it
Mm-hmm.
changed exactly, but I think throughout my 4 years, just my style of play, the way I carry myself, my confidence in myself, all of that definitely definitely changed. And again, like I think I've been in every position there is to be, on the sidelines, injured, whatever it is. And I never, my belief in myself never wavered. And yeah,
That's great. That's great. How does one develop that level of rock solid confidence, right? Because a lot of goalies' belief in themselves wavers, right? You give up 3, 4 goals in a row, and you start asking yourself, like, geez, can I make saves? Do I belong here? It's a very mental game, a very mental position, this lacrosse goalie. How did you develop that rock solid confidence?
I wouldn't say it's always been like, I wouldn't even say it's rock solid now, but I've definitely like, I'm trying to figure out how I want to say this.
Not rock solid, but
Yeah,
it's up there. All
I
right.
I definitely have just been able to be uncomfortable in no, sorry. I've definitely been able to, like, embrace hard situations
Yeah,
and just regardless of how hard they may have been for me, I always knew that I was gonna find a way.
I
And
love that.
even there's some times where I was, like, defeated, like, I was just always remember why I love the sport and that I'm grateful to be playing the sport wherever I was, and I was gonna find a way. And I mean, I wouldn't say any goalies had a super easy pathway to where they are, whatever it may be, but I think just knowing that and embracing like failure is a huge, huge thing in having the belief in yourself, I would
Yeah.
say. Like everything's an experience, everything, whether you know it or not now, like you're gonna learn from that experience and yeah, be grateful for it one day, as hard as it may be.
I love that. You know what really helps me is because I'm running a business, right? And sometimes like
Yeah.
you get like this imposter syndrome of like, wait a minute, like who am I? Like why would anybody listen to me? Like, am I really good at this? I have like testimonials, like a folder, kind of like an achievements folder or whatever. Confidence reservoir, I heard someone refer to it as. And then like on those days when you don't have it, you're not feeling it, like you go back and you review it. And for goalies, it could be reviewing the tape, right? Like watching yourself making
Hmm.
these saves and you're like, oh yeah, like I am a good goalie, like I do know what I'm doing out there. Anyway, that really helps me, so I wanted to share that with everyone.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with that. I definitely have some things I like to look back on, but I think just growing up, like, and with outside things of lacrosse, I've learned that like life's too short. So
Yeah,
you got to be present every day and you got to live every day like it's your last in a way, as cliche as that is. But yeah, so why not?
I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
So the other thing I love that you mentioned there is like, when I asked did your goalie game change, it's like, yeah, like 100%. And like, yeah, the techniques change, but also like you said, like, just being around like these elite D1 athletes, you kind of realize like what hard work is. Like you probably had an idea of what it meant when you were at high school, and then you get to like Syracuse or USC and you're like, oh, it's like way up here. Am I right in that? Would you agree?
Totally.
Yeah.
Yes, totally.
Yeah.
Um, and that can like if I'm being completely honest, like it's difficult to realize that. And when like I was so confident in myself and just my like level of play in high school, and then you get to college and again you're with all these amazing people and you're competing against them, and that can be challenging. But again, I think I embraced it, and the best thing you can do is be a great teammate, be a lead by example, and do all the right things, and put in the hard work, and it'll pay off for sure.
Yeah. What do you think it means to be a great teammate?
I think this is a very this is a deep question, but
I
I'll
know.
say
We're going deep. We're going deep.
I, I think it's something that I really pride myself in, and it's got to be your priority. It's your team over you, and it's supporting your teammates and committing to bettering the culture and learning with them and building them up and supporting them, whatever they're going through.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I think being a good teammate is no matter what you like, it's putting your team above yourself.
Love that. Yeah. Yeah, and you had a situation where at Syracuse, 2 years ago, right? You're splitting time
Yeah,
in the beginning of the season, which can be tricky as a goalie and someone who's like so competitive as well. You're like, I want that to be like I want to be the starter. And but being a great teammate is doing what's best for the team, right? And keeping that positive attitude, and like even if you're not the starter, you're still like rooting on your team and the other goalie, and working as hard as you can to earn that spot, right? But at the same time, like being a great teammate, right?
totally.
Yeah.
I think that I I would say I definitely put put my team before myself, and I trust in my coaches. So obviously, when they made that decision, it was difficult, but I trusted whatever they were doing, and I was gonna continue to work hard and help my team where I could. But even though I wasn't actually on the field, I was on the field with my teammates, cheering them on, being a part of like the defensive chats, like doing the little things and just being a good teammate, being supportive of whoever is on the field. And you're all on the team no matter what. So being on the field isn't a defining thing, I
Right,
guess,
right, exactly. I mean,
if
you're
that
part of the
makes
team.
sense.
No, you're part of. Yeah, I interviewed this other goalie, and he was like, "Yeah, one of my best memories is going to the Final Four, and like I didn't play any meaningful minutes of game time. That but obviously you're still on the team. You're still a part of it, right?
Yeah,
So
totally.
yeah, I love that. And why did Kayla go with the dual goalies? Just because you had two goalies that were playing well, and I kind of want to switch it up and see what's going on, or what was kind of the theory of that? Because I've always been a one goalie guy, one goalie like type of coach, and I've never, unless it's club, right, where you're trying to get kids like some playing time. I've never seen the
Yeah.
benefit of the two goalie system.
That was kind of the first time I mean, been a part of that. I know UNC did that with Taylor Marino and Caylee Waters, I want to say, for a
Yeah,
couple years.
Megan Ward, and Caylee Waters. Yeah,
Oh, sorry.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So it was interesting. I'm not really sure. I think we both were just competing against each other, and maybe she thought that that could work. But I mean, at one point she had to make a decision, and yeah, I'm not totally sure. I can't answer that
All right,
fully.
we'll get coach on the show.
Cut that out. Cut that out.
No, all good. All good. And then yeah, so but later in the season, Kimber then does end up starting. And talk to me about, we talked about being a good teammate, but it can feel like, when you lose that starting job, it can be tough mentally, right? How was it for you, and
Totally.
how did you overcome it? Because spoiler alert, you overcame it. Like, you're now the goalie of the year. You had a phenomenal season last season. So yeah, I'd love to hear that.
I think again, like I wouldn't change a thing. Be like the past years at Syracuse, I wouldn't change, being that second goalie that year, because it really taught me to focus on myself, and I'm the only one I'm competing against at the end of the day. Um, and it it does force you to really be a good teammate. It does put you to the test, mentally. But I think that was just a great experience for me to have to be able to acknowledge that my playing time doesn't really define me as a person in a way.
Mm,
I
that's
think I
great.
learned
Yeah.
a lot of great lessons just from, that struggle. But I think just being a goalie, it's hard because you're so isolated. There's only a few of you on the team. Um, Usually, like you said, only one goalie ends up being the player, whatever.
Right.
But yeah, I think that was again a great experience to have. And I love Kimber. I think she's awesome. And I just took it as an opportunity to learn from her and learn from her game, like what she does in there, find ways to make myself better, talk to my coaches, which can be an uncomfortable thing, figure out what ways they wanted me to be better. Um, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm spewing, but I'm doing my
No,
best.
no, this is great. That was absolutely great. For the record, I love Kimber too. She's awesome.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
awesome.
Um, so what then this last season, phenomenal season. Congratulations. I watched
Thank
a
you.
lot of your games, and just so many great saves in there that I want to talk about. But like, going into this season, did you do anything different training wise that you think really had like an impact, or do you think it was just kind of the culmination of everything that you've done up to this point?
I think a little bit of both. I think, um, just a culmination of, all the things I've learned, growing my mindset, I would say, and really focusing on myself and no one else. Um, that was like a huge factor. But I had an injury this fall, or that past fall. So that was really difficult for me. And I came in, I was super ready to compete and I felt very focused, very dialed in, and I knew what I needed to do. And then I ended up not being able to play in the fall. But what that really taught me was to be present in the moment, and you can only control what you can control. And when I was injured, every day I would wake up and I'd be like, all right, this is what I'm doing today. This is the truth I'm living in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think come winter time, when I finally got back in the cage, it was almost like the best, the the worst best thing that ever happened to me in a way, because it allowed me to take a step back. And obviously I had to learn from a different position that was on the side with the injured crew. But yeah, I'm as hard as it is being injured, I learned so much more from a totally different perspective in that fall.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just this when I did finally come back, um, I was just like every day, like no matter what happens, like I'm gonna be present and I'm gonna show up to practice and give it everything I got. And however, regardless of what happens, the past is the past, and the next day is the next day. So I think that was just a huge kind of like click in my head that if I'm so focused on the past, I'm not gonna be able to move forward, kind of thing.
Yeah, that's
So
cool.
yeah,
I mean, it's just I love how you know reframed such a bad thing, which is an injury, knee injury, right? I saw you wearing a brace on the knee. Was it a knee injury?
yeah, I've had I've had a few knee injuries, and they were in high school, but I always just felt like confident and comfortable wearing my knee brace. And
Uh-huh.
then I got hurt at a Goaliesmith camp that I went to.
Oh no.
And yeah, and I wasn't wearing my brace. And then now I actually like they recommend I wear it, but not just a part of my swag, I would say. But
Yeah, you make a lot of saves off of that thing, huh?
yeah, I would say extra surface, extra surface.
Yeah. Anyway, the point I was making is that you reframed, such a horrible thing like an injury into a great thing. And sometimes like it actually does, you can take these really bad moments or bad things that happen in your life and it just gives you this perspective of like, wow, I mean, there was a guy that wrote me that like almost died in a car accident, and then when he came back to lacrosse, it was like he had this newfound love because he's like, geez, like so it gives you this new perspective, and I think that's what a little bit of what you found there.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. Um. Awesome. Yeah, Goaliesmith is amazing. Those guys, I've never obviously been to one of their camps, but I've had them on the show. I love them. I mean,
I love them.
talk to me about training with them and what do you think that, how that leveled up your game?
So it's funny because when I was at USC, Mike was the volunteer assistant. So
Oh,
that's
okay.
actually how I first met him,
Mm-hmm.
and he was awesome there. He was always so supportive, giving me great tips. And then I think I went to their first or second TGA. I don't know. It's so long ago at this point, which is the Goaliesmith experience. And you're competing and you're surrounded by all goalies, which is so sick, and it's grown so much over these past couple of years. But I think what I love most about Goaliesmith is they don't try to make you play one way. They kind of try to help you elevate your style of play and give you strategies and tips and whatever it may be to help you find what really works for you. And I think being surrounded by so many goalies, you're able to learn so much, not only from the coaches, but from the goalies you're competing with. And I
Yeah.
think I just, I was there this summer. I love it. Like you just get so many reps and you're just having fun. They bring the vibes there.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it's an awesome experience for sure. I would recommend it.
Yeah, definitely. I recommend it too. But that's such a great point. Is like just being around that level of like elite caliber is going to level up your game, right? I mean, you are the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And if you're spending all this time with those great goalies, like you're going to level up your game. And then, so then like, did you like learn something from the other goalies? Like, oh, like I love the way that she, attacks this ball on a low angle shot, like some technique, or was it more about like, I don't know, mindset type of stuff?
Definitely technique things
Techniques.
that,
Yeah.
and I mean, obviously sometimes you develop like a bad habit. I wouldn't say I'm perfect.
Sure.
But I think they just help you like tweak these little things here and there. I think one of the biggest things I they've helped me learn is, or that I've something they've taught me that I think really works for me, is stepping very laterally and not
Mm.
outward to the ball. I was always told to attack the ball, but I think being patient and stepping more laterally, playing like a flatter arc was something that really worked for me, and I learned it from there. So
Mm-hmm.
that's definitely a huge one of the like teaching points I guess I've learned from them. But I've definitely learned a lot over the years, and they've been a huge reason that I think I play the way I do, and yeah,
Love
I'm the
it.
goalie I am
Love it.
today.
Love it. Let's stick with the technique. I'd love to hear how do you approach 8-meter shots? Because I feel like you're great at them. I don't know if you'll say the same. You'll probably say I'm still working to get better, which is I love. But I mean, I did a couple Delaney Sweitzer reels, and one of them, like as I'm editing the save edit, it's just like 8-meter save after 8-meter save. I think it was the Clemson game. I think they went like 1 for 8 out of 8 meters, which is like tremendous. So I don't know, when an 8-meter happens, what do you walk me through what you go through?
I think now, I'm this is just speaking on how I've played, like, the past year and how I continue to play now. I just play it straight on, and I take a breath, and I literally just look at the ball. I know I was watching, Lily Callahan's, um, pod podcast with you, and I just
Yeah.
loved how she was like, "The ball is all that matters," and she loves them. I was like, "I feel the same way." But yeah, I think sometimes you just gotta let yourself react and not try to be so like focused on that they get an 8 meter. Rather, like it's a chance to make a big save, and a save that people don't expect you to make in a way. Like 8 meters
Yeah.
are like a free throw. So
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know. I feel like I just stay focused on the ball.
There you go. Keep it simple, right? Take a deep breath.
Yeah,
I mean, I think it is good to have a routine so that like when that play happens, like you can just do that routine, even if it's a simple routine, take a breath and kind of
yeah,
find your spot on the arc. And then, yeah, just pick up that ball and
yeah,
make the save that you've made thousands of times.
yeah.
Um, Love it. Awesome. And then sometimes though, I seen you kind of toy with the shooters a little bit, where you kind of like baiting them one way and then kind of hop over here and then hop over there. You know what I'm talking about? Like,
Yeah, I
yeah, all right.
definitely like I like to let the game come to me, and obviously sometimes I need to toy around with my play, and I wanna get in the shooter's head a little bit and make it known that I'm giving them this area, and I want you to shoot it there. So sometimes I do take a step here and there, or drop my stick a little and bait, but yeah, I
Yeah, I
guess.
loved it. I think when you guys played Boston College, in the tournament, there was one where you did it like 3 or 4 times. You're like, all right, I'm gonna move over here, and I'll move back over here, move over here, move back over here, and then she ends up shooting it high. I mean, you were just living rent free in her head. She couldn't even put it on cage.
Yeah, I sometimes I do that to reset myself. I think that's another big thing I really wanted to say on this podcast, is that I think every goalie should have a reset, whatever it may be.
Hmm.
And I think taking a breath and reassuring yourself and bringing yourself back to the present moment is so important being a goalie, and especially in 8 meters. There's three words that I said to myself every game after every goal or save, and it would just make me realize that, all right, like I let one in, like next play, like here we go. Like I'm ready kind of
Mhm.
thing. So yeah,
Yeah, I
I
was gonna ask.
definitely
I was gonna ask about your
oh sorry.
post goal routine because I think that's super important for every goalie to have. And you were saying, so you're saying it's what? So you give up a goal and you give yourself a little pep talk. To talk me through that again, if you could.
Yeah, I think just like as a goalie, like you have so much time to think in a way.
Yeah.
And I mean, I've talked a lot like with this mental performance coach that our team worked with, and he said you can't think your way out of thinking. Actions do that.
Mm.
So I guess when I was thinking so much or like in these games, I would start to take a deep breath, bring myself back, and I would say, big set focus. And I would be like, my presence would be big. I would be set. I would be ready in my position and I would focus. And I think just having a reset is so important. And like the last goal doesn't mean you're going to let in another goal. So, yeah, I would just say it's the consistency of having a reset helps you focus on what's actually happening in front of you, I would say.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. You guys work with Dr. T, right?
Yeah, we did, but this past year we worked with Mark Lencini, who's a
Got it.
sports performance,
Got it. Got it. What
mental
else?
performance.
What else did he teach you? I'd love to dig into some of those lessons if anything else comes to mind.
Oh, he taught me so much. He definitely helped elevate elevate my game. And he has all these awesome quotes and awesome sayings that I kind of like live by off the field too. I mean, one of them that he always said to our team was stop saying stupid stuff out loud because that's when you believe it.
Oh
Um,
yeah, yeah, I get it.
but I think the biggest not lesson, but biggest mindset thing we talked about was the idea of this neutral mentality. And I think there's an awesome book that he recommended to all of us called "It Takes What It Takes" by Trevor Moawad, and it talks about like having neutral mentality, and it talks about Russell Wilson, who was one of the high performing athletes that he worked with. But basically, to me, a neutral mentality is being in the present and living in the truth, and that's having honest self talk and focusing on the process, not the outcome. So,
Mhm.
not focusing on the win or loss, but focusing on what's going on, what's in front of you. And I think he really taught me that the process is important, regardless of if things are going your way, if things aren't going your way, the process stays the same. And I think that's what really helped me like be successful this year in a way. And it really helped me take my game to the next level. Just even in my life when I think I'm gonna be neutral, I'm neutral because it's not a high or a low. It's like very like honest, and that that can be really hard to do. But it's definitely a mindset that our team really tried to take on and learn. And obviously, it's still in the works. Like it never stops, but I love it because when I started reading the book, It Takes What It Takes, it felt very relatable. Like positivity, like is only good for like so much, but like how much negativity will always be negative, like
Mhm.
1,000% of the time. So yeah, I don't know. I love this. I love the idea of and the concepts that neutral mentality um he's talked about, the books talked about. Yeah.
Is that how you then deal with slumps? Because obviously, as a goalie, like, we can get into slumps, whether it's a quarter or a half or
Yeah.
a game or a string of games or a string of practices, you're just not seeing it. Then is that mindset of, all right, I'm not going to focus on the outcome, but rather just the process and kind of keep seeing my reps, keep doing my drills, keep working
Yep.
hard, keep putting in the work. Is that kind of how you get through slumps?
Yeah, I think I mean, it was a long time coming, but I've learned it this year, like, with him. And there was even one game where I talked to him after, and it was earlier in the year, and I was like, "Well, I I didn't feel like I was doing anything." Like, there was a point where I'd let in, like, 3 goals in a row, and he was just like, "But your process was great. But you were consistent with your process." And I was like, "You know what? You're right." Like, I I took a breath. I was doing my reset. I was doing, like, the little someone thinks it's quirky, but I would jog around back and forth when I felt like I needed to get activated, and or
Hmm.
I would take a breath when I needed to calm down. And I think that was a huge turning point for me in realizing that, like, I'm gonna trust this process, and I believe in the neutral mentality. And I know that if I continue to be consistent with this, like, something good's gonna come from it, whatever it may be. And yeah, I think just it really allows you to, like, be in the moment
Love it.
and be honest with yourself.
I love it. All right. Neutral mentality. What else? Any other lessons come to mind? This is great. It's the gold mine of lessons here. I don't, if nothing else comes to mind, we can move on, but I'm just curious.
Um, I think another thing, I mean, I love Lily Callahan. She went to Goaliesmith this past year, and I was watching her. Obviously, I was watching the podcast, but she was talking about how simplifying, like, the position.
Hmm.
And I think that's something that I really took on this past year, and Mark helped me with. But being a goalie, your number one job is being a ball stopper, and that's always what I told myself. I'm like, I'm not in charge. I you want to be a vocal leader, of course, but if that takes away from you being the ball stopper, then maybe take a step back, kind of
Yeah.
thing. So I think just for me, like, throughout my, like, career, I think I always used to be such a vocal leader, and I would always try to, like, help the defense in front of me. But to a certain extent, I think now in college, like, the defense communicates so much already. And I think it was different for me to step back from that role of being like a big vocal leader while games are happening and on the field. But I think that it allowed me to just focus on my one job, and that was ball stopping. And it was kind of like a totally different, because I'm a loud person in general, and I would say I love to talk. And that was always something, like, I prided myself on as a goalie. Like, growing up, I was like, I know, like, I can I have great chemistry with the defense in front of me, because I have built these relationships with them, and I know that they'll listen to me when I am talking on the field, whatever. But I think that was definitely something different for me this year that I did. I was like, all right, this is my biggest focus. Like, this is my only job, kind of thing. So yeah, I don't know if that would help other people, but I love Lily Callahan, and I keep butchering her last name, but I thought
She's
that was really awesome that she said that.
Yeah, I mean, to that, I love Lily too. She was great. To that point, the it's sort of like building blocks, and like the base is making the stops, making the saves, right? And if you can do that and now also communicate, and it doesn't impact your saves, then great. And that's what a lot of
Yeah,
goalies do. But if it does, like, yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think there's other people that can help with the defensive communication and calling out the slides and getting the two
yeah,
slides set up. Not
and
any other ones that can
sorry.
help make the saves, right?
I definitely don't think I was, like, super quiet on the field. I
Yeah.
definitely would be, like, calling out where ball is, but I think I was took a step back in a way of not, like, con consistently talk. I don't know how to put it. Like,
I'm not well, because you
if
I watched the tape. I mean, I think you are I think you are loud out there, but maybe it's just
yeah,
it's not like a constant thing. So maybe it's just
yeah.
well timed communication. Maybe we leave it at that.
Yes, I would say that.
All right. All
I
right.
don't really know how to describe it.
Yeah. Um, awesome. What was your favorite game from last year?
Oh, I loved every game.
Yeah.
we had a really awesome year, and I mean, I don't think I would have had the year I did without my team or our coaches. I want to say my favorite game was probably the UNC game, the first time we played them
Mm-hmm.
at UNC, and it was just really special because a lot of the older girls had never beaten them, and like they were literally crying after the game, and I was just like full of like gratitude, and like I it was just such a happy moment. But it was such a competitive back and forth game, and we all just kind of played very free, and it was a lot of fun.
I love it. I love it. Talk to me about the Delaney Sweitzer drip, because if there is one goalie that looks good out there, it's Delaney. Talk to me about what you do, and then mentally, or why that works for you.
I'm I'm not really sure. I just kind of thought Ibach was swaggy when I was like in high school, so it was something that I always put on and would play around with. But then it just kind of made me realize that like, all right, it's game time. Like, let's go. And I kind of just like looking scary, I would say. It's like
Yeah.
people say it's intimidating, and I'm like, what are you intimidated of? Like it's eye black, but I don't know. It just makes me feel like, all right, let's go. It's game time.
Yeah. Yeah, I
It's
like it.
so
I mean,
funny.
you got the like, I don't know how you describe it, like several down, kind of like the like
Like
war, yeah, like hold the eye
three
black down.
stripes.
Yeah, three stripes. There you go. See, I played in the year two. I graduated college in 2003, so we didn't really have like the Instagram and the Facebook to see what the other goalies were doing. So I just had the normal stripes of eye black. I could have had it so much cooler if only I'd
Yeah,
known.
I guess I think my brothers definitely loved eye black. So they were probably, oh, put this on, it'll look cool, and then it just kind of stuck, I guess.
Yeah, there you go. I also wanted to ask you about your face dodge, because I did another reel where, like, I mean, I'm watching your games and making save edits, and you just like whew, juke girls like out of their shorts. I mean, it is crazy. How did you develop that move?
Um, it's funny. I remember my brother CJ like teaching me that one day. Couldn't tell you where we are, but I was young. He was like, if you want to like get around someone, like this is what you do. And I mean, in high school, I used to toe drag people,
Yeah,
and that was like my move. I love doing it, but I think just like finding ways to be like confident outside of the crease was something that I learned at a in high school and from my siblings who are all amazing field players. Obviously, I'm the only goalie in the fam, but yeah, I think I learned that from my older brother. Definitely taught me that.
I love it. That was my bread and butter move too, because it works every time. Like you bring it back, and
Yeah,
the attackmen always go for your stick, and they're just like, whoa, and then
or they
they
jump
go
in the
flying.
air.
They jump in the air. That's another one too. Yeah.
Yeah.
So sometimes, like, sometimes I would even give them a little look back, like, whoa, like I just totally juked the crap out of you, you know?
No, it is fun once you get past them.
Yeah. Love it. Well, Delaney, thank you so much for coming on the show. Oh, what stick are you going with? It looks like you were playing with the Eclipse 2 last season. Are you going to give the Eclipse 3 a try? Or are you going to stick with the 2?
I love the 2 right now. I think we're getting some of them strung up again, but I mean, um, I used to be very like I used to use the shield, which was crazy. It's crazy to think about now because I learned that it was like a box head, I guess.
It's heavier and
But
stiffer. Yeah.
yeah, I love the Eclipse too, and I'm sure that I'll get the chance to try the Eclipse 3.
Awesome.
But
Awesome.
yeah,
Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, Delaney. Good luck in the upcoming season. It's going to be fun to watch. Is this your last year? You got two more.
yes, last fifth year.
Last year, the final run, the
Yeah,
last dance.
yep.
Let's go. Let's go. Bring home.
Thanks for
Bring
having me.
Absolutely. I always like to ask, if you had to leave the goalies out there with the final piece of advice, what would that be?
Um, I think again, just have that belief in yourself and continue to put in the hard work and do all the little things and it'll pay off and just try to learn from different perspectives, like whether you're on the field or off the field, like everything's a learning experience. And I think that's what's so cool about being a goalie is everyone's style is so different. You can learn so much from every goalie you play with or watch, no matter what level they are. So just really think about that, I would say.
Love it. Delaney, thank you so much.
Thank you. I hope